Mr. Kensington, I'm looking for a Mr. Kensington. I have a package for Kensington. Oh, hey guys, welcome to Kensington. We're so excited to have you here for Christmas. This is the right place. Hey, while we still have people coming in for service, if I could have everybody get up and scooch closer to the middle so everyone trickling in has a spot to stay, that'd be awesome. Well, I gotta go. I gotta drop this off. I gotta get my seat too. UPS.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, round the young virgin, mother and child, holy and feel so tender and mild. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night. All is calm, all is bright. Silent night, holy night. Shepherds quake at the sight. Glory stream from heaven above. Heavenly hosts sing. Hallelujah. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace.
so excited, it's almost Christmas. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Lights, please.
Rudolph, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?
No child wants to play with a Charlie in the box.
What would I wear?
Not going in our yard, Russ. It's going in our living room.
Put that cookie down now!
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, here he comes, here he goes. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, here he comes, here he goes.
Does someone need a hug?
I'm singing. I'm in a store. I'm singing.
Who's singing in Norfolk?
I'm singing.
No, it's not.
I'm singing.
I didn't know you had elves working here.
I'm singing.
He's an angry elf.
Yes, there is. We sing all the time,
No, it's not.
especially when we make toys. 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 Especially when we make toys. 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 Especially when we make toys.
No, it's not.
Santa's coming to town. Santa's coming to town.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Hello.
A Happy New Year.
Said the night went to the little lamb. Do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb. Do you see what I see? A star, dancing in the night with a tail as big as a kite. Said the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? Oh, them silver and gold.
Merry Christmas! Welcome to Kensington. Was that insane or what? Can you see the drummer in there in the window? I tried to keep up with him and I got a migraine. That is incredible. Wow. When I heard we were building a house, I was thinking like a house. That's like a house. It will be available for sale on Zillow after the Christmas services are over. You can find it there. Man, we are so excited that you are here today. That opening bit, if you were not awake, you're welcome. Now you're awake. So here's what is so awesome about this particular service. This is number 7 of 10 that we'll be doing, but it's the first one today. The first one on Christmas Eve. And I think Christmas Eve is just the best of all the collection of our services because of its closeness to tomorrow. So as awesome as all that was, here's what made it work. One thing, timing. The timing of the lights, with the music, with the instruments, with the vocals, had to all work together. Imagine any part of that being out of timing from the rest of it. It's kind of a disaster and a little cringy. What made it awesome was the timing of all of it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This whole morning is about one ultimate idea, and it is the perfect timing of God's entrance into humanity. 2,000 years ago, what we celebrate tomorrow is that the God of creation became a part of his creation, that the immortal became mortal. And one of the things that we have spent a lot of time thinking about in the last several weeks leading up to this moment and this day is the fact that there was such a unique, specific, and intentional timing on that day that it communicates something to us, not just about that day, not just about 2,000 years ago, but very much also about today and all the days in front of us. So we're excited that you're with us today, whether you're here or whether you're online, in the room, or watching somewhere else. And here's what we also know. With 40 plus services throughout all of our campuses for Christmas, there's a lot of you that are walking into Kensington for the first time, whether it's here or somewhere else, and we're just excited that you're here with us at Clinton Township. And what we want to do is we want to tell you a little bit about who we are as a church, what matters to us, and what we do. And so we put together a video to give you a little bit of an introduction. Take a minute and watch this.
Hey, we're Kensington Church, a community of imperfect people with an obsession to see people transformed and mobilized by Jesus.
We're not about rules, religion, or checking the boxes, but we're all about making an impact while chasing joy and not taking ourselves too seriously.
Whether you've never been to church, or maybe you've been searching for a place to belong for ages, take a deep breath and know all you need to do is show up to a service. That's it.
It doesn't matter if your life is in order or what your background looks like. Everyone is welcome through our doors, and everyone has a place here.
When you show up at Kensington, you'll experience a practical message relevant to your life today, like how to navigate relationships and family, how to respond to cultural conversations, and how to become the person God has created you to be.
We believe the Bible is more than a history book, a psychology text, or a scientific journal.
We believe the Bible tells us who God is and his desires and plans for us.
Our hope is that when you show up, you'll experience a healthy mix of inspiration, truth, and challenge. And while you're attending services, your kids are welcome to join K-Kids, where they learn about God and have tons of fun along the way.
Once you're here at Kensington, you'll find lots of opportunities to get connected. Jump into a group, Bible study, or a course where your questions and doubts are welcomed.
People meet in coffee shops and homes where lifelong relationships are formed. And when life gets tough, we have support groups to walk you through divorce, grief, and addiction.
As counterintuitive as it sounds, our goal is to move you out of this place to impact your neighborhood, workplace, and even the world.
We travel across the globe to love and care for people. We run for clean water. We fight for victims of human trafficking.
We stand for the poor and the powerless, and we share the love of Jesus to people who've never heard it.
Locally, we unite and empower groups of people to make a difference in the places and people they care about, like in under-resourced schools and the homeless community.
We are so excited to see what God is going to do when you show up.
Yeah. So, as excited as we are for everything else this morning, I do just want to take a minute and specifically acknowledge you that are in the room maybe for the first time ever. Because one of the things that I want you to know is that you matter to us being here. But I'm also aware, like in a room this size with this many people, it's very easy to just feel like you're lost in the crowd. And some of you, I get it, maybe that's where you want to be. You're kind of like, I want to be lost in the crowd. But some of you, maybe you don't want to be lost in the crowd anymore. And maybe this is more than just a one and done thing for you. And you're trying to figure out, like, is church the place for you to be? And is this the church for you to be? And so if that's you, there's a couple things I just want to invite you to do that would help us engage with you a little bit better than you just sitting there and us up here. One of which is when you walked in, you got this handout, perfect timing. In the back of that, there's a flap that you can fill out. We just call it the Connect card. If you want to fill that out and drop it in the giving bags when they go by later, we will not harass you with anything you give us in terms of information. It just lets us know who you are. And it gives us the opportunity to stay in contact with you so that you can just know more about what's going on and how to engage with us. Other thing that you can do if you want, out in the lobby, there's a place that we call the Hub. Giant pole, says Hub all around the top of it. Can't miss it. If you want to ask questions or just learn more about who we are, what makes us tick, and how to get involved, you can go out there. There's going to be people out there that would love to talk to you and meet you. And then the last thing that I just want to encourage you to do is this. In January, we're launching a series that we're going to be in for the entire month called Sermons from the Seats. And one of the things I'm so excited about with this series is that I think sometimes in church we can get this idea that the message only comes from the stage. It has been my experience over all the years that I have been doing this that sometimes the best messages actually come from the seats. When we realize that God doesn't do his best stuff just here, he does it out there. And there are stories all throughout Kensington of men and women that God is not just doing incredible things in their life, he's doing amazing things through their life. And so we've recorded a number of those stories that we're going to share throughout the month of January. And if you're especially trying to figure out who we are as a church and if this is the place for you, that is a do not miss series because you're going to get such a look at the people that are this church and what it is that we value. So I just want to encourage you to come back for that. If nothing else, be there in the month of January with us. So here's what I just want to do right now. We still do have a few guests that are walking in. It is, if you look around, a packed house today. So if you could help me out this morning, I'm going to ask you to stand up. And I know you've already found your seat. And you're like, this is my real estate. Crunch in just a little bit if you can, just to make some room on the ends for our guests. As you do, I just want you to muster up the best Christmas spirit you got and wish somebody around you good morning and a Merry Christmas. Go ahead. So my name is Craig. I am one of the teaching pastors here. Clearly, I have a single fan out there. Woo, to you too. I have no idea who you are. I hope you're not a weird stalker. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Clinton Township. And one of the things that is just such a privilege for me is to be able to spend the next little bit of time up here trying to make sense of this idea of God's perfect timing. I want you to help me get the morning going. I know it's 9 o'clock and some of us might still be waking up, probably more coffee here than there will be at 5 o'clock. But can you guys participate with me just a little bit this morning? Say yes. All right, then I want you to help me get the whole thing going. You're gonna preach a message before I preach it. You're just gonna say two things out loud with me. You ready? Say timing is everything. Timing is everything. I remember the first time that I wandered down. I got brave enough as a kid to wander downstairs on Christmas Eve. So this night, a couple years ago, when I was little, and I came downstairs because I could hear all the commotion with my mom and dad. Now, here's the deal. It was way too early to catch Santa, but I knew something was going on down there, so I'm like, I gotta see what's happening. And I came down just in time to catch my grandpa putting together what I would open the next day for my gift, which was a Lionel train set. I don't know if you guys ever got the line, like that was the gift to get when I was a kid. So I catch him putting it together, and the next morning I come down and I do the whole like, what? I'm so surprised, like I had no idea. And here's what's so precious about that and why timing was perfect. It's the last memory I have of my grandpa on a Christmas before he passed away. And what's not lost on me is that had I come down 20 minutes sooner or 20 minutes later, there's a really good chance that I would have never had that moment in that memory. Like timing is what? It's everything. And it's not just everything in like nostalgic memories. It's everything in everything. In biology, timing is everything. It is the timing of your beating heart right now that keeps you alive. Timing is everything in sports, right? It's the timing of the pitch that decides whether or not the pitcher makes millions or makes nothing, goes pro or goes nowhere. Timing is everything in relationships even, right? Like, so if you've tuned me out, tune back in already. If you're already falling asleep, because guys, this one's specifically for you. This might be the very reason you came today. If your wife asks you, does this outfit make me look fat? You have a fraction of a second to answer that question. No. You hesitate a split second too long, you are a dead man. Just get your pillow and move to the couch. Don't even try to recover from that one. Right? Timing is everything. There was a picture I saw, probably a lot of you did too, but I love this one because it's a perfect picture of timing. This is a baseball game. Like, look at this dad. Like, what a reaction in a moment. Not just to capture that picture, but the timing of his reaching out that arm. Love to point out too that the distracted kid is doing what? I'm just saying, I got 3 of them. I'm always telling them to get off that phone. And then there's a couple others as well. Look at this one. I affectionately call this one the nose picker. And then I have another one here. This one I call dancing on water. Isn't that awesome? And then my personal favorite, this is called rocker baby. I don't know who that kid is, but I want to have another one just to try for that photo. That is awesome. One more time, timing is. And here's the reality and the direction we're going to go today. I believe the most important moment of timing that history and the world has ever known happened 2,000 years ago, when in the obscurity of a cave, we call it a barn. It was a cave where animals were held, and in a manger, an infant Jewish baby boy drew his first breath. And that would go on to become the most important breath ever drawn in creation. And that's what we celebrate. And the timing of that was perfect. So I want to pray and just ask God, who I believe is very present in this room. He didn't stay in a manger. He didn't stay on a cross, and he didn't stay in a tomb. He's present in this room. I want to ask him to speak to us and make sense of this book that he wrote to us. So let me pray. Father in heaven, who is also here on earth below, I just kneel before you for a moment to acknowledge your kingship over all creation. That you are so good and beautiful and amazing and so perfect in all that you do, including perfect in the moment that you chose to step into our chaos, into our world, so that you could step not just into the world, but into our world, into our lives. God, today is just a day that we want to celebrate you. And I think maybe also there's some of us in here that are trying to figure out if there even is a you. And so would you just do what only you can do, what no person from this stage could ever accomplish? Would you speak to all of us? Wherever we're at, convinced that you're here or not convinced even yet that you exist. Grab our hearts and grab our minds and let us know you love us. In Jesus' name, amen. So for a minute, here's one of the things we're going to do that matters to us as a community. We're going to collect up our offering. And I want you to know this, especially because there's probably a number of you that are new and just visiting with us. We are not trying to get something from you this morning. So when our giving bags go by, I want you to feel the complete freedom to let those pass you. Because here's what we believe about Jesus. He is a giver. He's never trying to take anything from us. And so we want to be people that are reflective of that and give to you all morning. But the reality is there's a lot of us here that Jesus is our King, And Kensington is our home, and we believe in the things that this place is doing and what we're accomplishing around the world, and that is only done because of what you do in these moments here when you give. So as the bag passes, just do what's appropriate for you to do in them, and thank you for what you do. All right, so timing. The thing about timing is it doesn't just create like funny pictures, it doesn't just create some of our most nostalgic moments, it also has the power to create some of our most embarrassing moments as well. Like for my wife and I. My wife's name is Nicole. We've been married for 23 years. This last year, her and I went on a cruise in February. And back in February, she decided before the cruise, if you've ever been on one, they have those formal nights where you dress up. So she decides before the formal night in the cruise, like she has to get a new dress. So she's like looking online and she finds one and she shows it to me. She's like, hey, here's the dress I found. I think I want to go get this dress. And I looked at it. I was like, wow, yes, you need to get that dress. So we had date night to go find her dress. So we get to the store. She's looking everywhere. She can't find the dress. So she starts to get really frustrated. She's like, I don't see the dress anywhere. I can't order online because you got to make sure it fits and we don't have time. We're going to be leaving for the cruise in a few days. It won't get here, blah, 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 blah. So we're getting ready to leave, and she turns around at one point, and she sees these two mannequins, and on one of the mannequins is the dress. Now, my personality is very introverted. Most people don't believe that because I'm usually on a stage like this, but I tend to be off the stage, more private, more quiet, more introverted, a little too concerned what people around me think about me. That's not my wife at all. So in the moment, I knew exactly what she was going to go do. Here's what I wanted to do. I'm going to go find a sales rep and ask him to appropriately do what needs to be done to take this dress off of the female mannequin in the women's department. My wife, no sooner had I thought that, she's already over there, and she's shimmying the dress down. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. There's people walking all over. Now, here's the problem. Because of all the clothes racks, as she shimmy the thing down, she's down here on the floor at one point, invisible to anybody around. Guess who's not invisible? The random guy in the women's department standing next to the naked female mannequin. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you too. Getting all the weird looks. Now she's on the ground and realizes on the ground she can't get the thing off of the mannequin because it's stuck on the post that goes up the foot, so she calls up to me, you're gonna have to pick it up. I'm like, I ain't touching that thing. I am not picking nothing up. Honey, you're on your own. I'm out of here. She's like, you better pick that thing up. I'm like, yes, ma'am. So I get over there, and I grabbed it. Now, here's the problem. It wasn't heavy, but it was a little heavier than I expected it to be. So as I lifted it up by the waist, it promptly slid down to the chest. So now I'm holding it here, like, whoa, hi, hey, what? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, here's what was awesome. Before I ran over to grab it, I looked around and made sure nobody's here, nobody's here, nobody's here for the right time. Nobody was there. It seemed like the entire store suddenly was empty. And then the minute I'm holding the thing eye level, everybody comes back in the store again, including this mom with her daughter who covers her eyes and walks her promptly the other direction. The worst part is I'm convinced that by the time we're done with 10 services, somebody's going to be in this room and go, I knew I recognized you, you creeper. Like timing is. And it's one of the things that I think makes, in one sense, the story of Christmas seem so bizarre. Because when you look at just the surface details, the timing seems completely off. In a book in the Bible called Matthew, in the first chapter, this is what we read about the account of the night that Jesus was born, and prior to that, actually, when it all began to unfold. Verse 18 says, this is how the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph. But before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was a faithful man to the law and here's one of the things about all of our lives, it's true. Doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum of your belief and faith in Jesus. There are things in your life that you don't want. And some of you are sitting deep in some of that right now. Maybe it's an issue with your health or a relationship, or maybe it's something that you've just come through, or maybe it's something that's in front of you. But one of the common things that connects us all as people is that there are frequent moments in life that we sit in like Joseph where there's just stuff going on that we just don't want, we didn't choose. It wouldn't have been what we would have selected for the days of our life. He did not want to expose her to public disgrace, so he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. And she will give birth to a son, and you are to name him Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. Everything about the timing for this excited bride-to-be seems way off when you look just at the surface. I mean, because you have this young Jewish girl, maybe somewhere between the age of 14 and 16. That was normal. That was customary in this culture. And she's waiting to get married. But here's how her timeline goes. I'm going to have a baby, I hope, after I get married, after I've been with my husband. And instead, now she has to go to her fiance and say, hey, baby, well, actually, we're having a baby. And I know you and I, and we haven't together. But it's okay. I want you to rest assured, God did it. Like, how's that for timing? And not only is this not the news that any groom-to-be wants to hear, the timing of the culture and history that this is taking place in seems off. This is not a culture that's friendly to an unwed mom, let alone one that's been rumored to have been unfaithful. It's a culture where if the letter of the law was followed, Joseph could have taken her to the leaders who would have taken her to the public square and executed her by stones or other methods. Like, how's that for timing? And then as you read through other details that are added on in layers through the other parts of the Bible about the Christmas story and the account of Christ's birth, it just adds more detail that seems to make the whole story seem off timing, not on timing, not perfect timing. Like this census taking place across the entire empire, the likes of which has never happened before. Which means that there's this mad dash for everybody flooding back into the hometown that they were born in. I don't know if you've ever traveled at the end of a pregnancy, but it's not a comfortable thing. I don't know that from personal experience, but my wife tells me. Now imagine doing half of it as a 70-mile journey on foot or on the back of an animal. Like, this just doesn't seem like good timing. And then their destination is Bethlehem, which is not a big town. As a matter of fact, it's such a small town that they do not have the infrastructure to support all the people that came from there that are flooding back in. So we sing certain songs that they're beautiful and there's certain parts of truth in them, but there's also other things that are wrong, like Silent Night, Holy Night. This was anything but a silent night. Holy, yes. Silent, no. It actually looked much more like Walmart on Black Friday. Like, this was just a night of chaos. Like, how's that for timing? And then we're told, according to the scriptures, that the regional leader of the day was a man named Herod, so corrupt and so insecure that the title of king given to anybody else, even an infant child, just wasn't going to fly. And so this is where the infamous death order happens, where he instructs that all children from the region and around the time frame, 2 years and under, are to be put to death. That was literally the first Christmas for families, that their front door was kicked in and soldiers dragged their 2-year-old or younger sons out of the house and put them to the sword. Like, how's that for timing? And here's the thing, for some of us, you might hear those details, whether you've known them before or not, and you might go, man, no, that surprises me. Because for some of us in this room, the truth is, those details seem to support what you already believe about God, which is this: if there is a God, his timing is horrible. Because here's what's true for every one of us. We've all had moments, I said it earlier, moments where life just doesn't go the way that we wanted. And sometimes those moments can get bad enough that even if you don't ask for help, you needed it. You needed somebody to help bail you out of something. That the problem exceeded either your skill set, your knowledge, your strength, whatever it was. And in that moment, some of us in this room, we turn to God. And for some of you in that moment, you feel like he met you, but there's others of us in this room that feel like he never showed up. Or that he was so late to the party that it just didn't matter when he did. Like, maybe it was a job that you couldn't afford to lose, and you cried out for help, and you lost it. Or a job that you needed, and you never got that call. Or maybe it was a marriage that was sinking, and you needed help. And you actually turned to him. Maybe it was even for the first time. And you're like, okay, if you're there, I could use a little bit of intervention. And nothing. Maybe it was a physical issue, a phone call from a doctor that nobody ever wants to get, but for you it just particularly came at the wrong time. Or maybe it was even this last week or season of life, a prayer that you've been offering up to God, something you've been asking, and it just seems like it's falling on deaf ears. And I think this is one of the reasons why throughout the Bible, this issue of time and timing is talked about so much. God is trying to get something through to us. One of the places that this happens like so clearly is in an Old Testament book called Ecclesiastes, where the author, like the theme almost, is God's timing in the construct of time. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 says this: "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens." He says, listen, there's nothing that happens under creation that doesn't have a designated time and season for it. And then in verse 11, he says this: "He," speaking of God, "has made everything," say the word everything, everything beautiful in its time. And he has also set eternity in the human heart. He makes everything. Here's the promise to that. God's ability is to take everything, not just the good things, and make them beautiful. The broken dreams, the broken relationships, the hurt, the abuse, the disappointment. He says he can take everything, and in his time, he can make it beautiful. You might go, man, I'm looking at stuff in my life that does not look very beautiful. In his time. It doesn't just randomly happen. It doesn't make itself beautiful. The Bible says he makes it beautiful in his time. And as you keep reading through the scriptures, there's over 800 times that the Bible talks about issues of time, timing, seasons. Like, I think God's trying to say something to us. Then in the New Testament, in a book called Galatians, the author Paul writes specifically about the timing of the night that Jesus was born. And this is what he writes in the book of Galatians. Paul says this, verse 4, chapter 4. "But when the set time," not the random time, not I guess this is a good time, not a moment by chance, when the set time, the thought about time, the intentional time, the time he plotted on the calendar before days ever began and the sun ever hung, when the set time had come, that's when God sent his son, born of a woman and born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. One of the things that I think is fascinating about this verse is something that you just have to have a little basic understanding of the Greek language that it was written in to get. In the Greek language, there's more than one word for time. Two of those words are captured in this one verse. And I think the reason that's important is it gives this fuller understanding of what God is saying, not just about the moment he came, but the moments that he steps into our lives, into our personal chaos, and how it's so divinely appointed when he does. This idea that everything is made beautiful in his time. So the two words in the Greek language at play in this verse are the words chronos and kairos. Chronos is where we get the word chronological. So think like the minutes on your watch, seconds that go by, tick, 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 tick. But kairos is a very different kind of meaning for time. So on your screen, here's a couple ways that we understand the differences between the two. When you look at chronos, for example, it's measured different. It speaks to the quantity of time that we have, which we know is always decreasing. Right now, time is literally decreasing for you as you sit in here. By the time you are out of this room, you will have lost time. Our hope is the quality of what you experience here will increase. And that's what kairos is. It speaks not to the quantity, but to the quality, which means even as the seconds tick away, the experiences can get richer and can get deeper and more meaningful. Chronos is measured in minutes, literally on your watch, where kairos is measured in the moments that matter. One is finite and the other is infinite. Here's what one author says about kairos moments. Kairos moments are the experiences that let us glimpse the other side and peek into eternity. Moments where the mortal and immortal, where the secular and the sacred all beautifully and perfectly collide together. So here's a question though. Why was 2,000 years ago the right divine moment? Why was that the set moment, the kairos moment, the moment that was about more than just the minutes on the watch? It was about a divine moment where God said, I am going to open up your world and give you a glimpse into the other side. Like, why not 500 years earlier? Or why not 500 years from now, when you could easily argue that there would be technology available that isn't even today? Why then, through those specific circumstances, to that specific culture, in that setting? That's literally the question that has driven this entire experience for us coming into Christmas. Why then was it the perfect timing? And what's fascinating is when you pull yourself back and look historically at some of what was happening on the landscape of this globe, it is unbelievable to begin to see just how strategic God was in picking that moment in time. Watch this video.
December 25th is one of the most well-known dates around the world, Christmas Day, the day that Jesus was born. Now about that, Jesus was not actually born on December 25th. No one knows the exact date he was born, but the best educated guess we have is sometime in September. I mean, can you imagine celebrating Christmas before the leaves even fall? Most of the holiday music would have to be rewritten. But the actual day and time Jesus was born is not nearly as important as the timing of Jesus' arrival. So let's back it up a millennium or so. From 1700 to 1300 BCE, the Israelites are enduring 400 years of slavery and cry out for a savior. God gives them Moses. Great guy, did a ton of incredible things, but Moses is not the Messiah. The timing wasn't right. From 1000 to 930 BCE, the people begged God for a king, so God gave them one. Wrong king. That's better. King Saul. Didn't work out so well. But then King David, followed by King Solomon, took over. It was glorious, but they were both deeply flawed, which led to a divided kingdom. The timing wasn't right. From 586 to 538 BCE, the Israelites are captured into slavery by the Babylonians, and they cry out for a savior. Cyrus the Great defeats the Babylonians and allows the Israelites to return back to Jerusalem. But Cyrus is not the Messiah that people have been waiting for. The timing wasn't right. So how about the Romans taking over and putting the nation of Israel under great oppression? Well, it sounds awful, but believe it or not, the timing was right. Here are a few reasons why. For the first time in history, the Mediterranean world, the cradle of civilization, was unified. The Romans had constructed the famous Roman roads. You know, like the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. So this allowed messengers to travel safely with news and ideas. Ships, too, had come of age. Several nations shared the highway that the Mediterranean Sea had become. This was yet another means for the message of Christ to spread far and wide. There's also this thing called the Pax Romana, the Roman peace that had lasted over 200 years. So Jesus was born when this began, and it meant a relatively calm environment for his arrival. The Romans were permissive about religions as long as there wasn't any trouble, and the Jews had paid a nice little tax. Stability and relative tolerance opened the world to the spread of a new idea. Roads and shipping lanes made it happen quickly and efficiently. But there was another key factor: language. For many years, people almost everywhere continued to speak Greek. This shared language made it possible for Paul and others to travel to many countries and tell people the good news of Jesus without cumbersome translation. In the Old Testament, there are approximately 65 direct predictions about the coming of the Messiah. And one of those predictions is in the book of Micah. And it said that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, which sounds great and all, but Joseph and Mary were in Nazareth 70 miles away. So here's what happened. Caesar Augustus started this thing called the Beautification Program. Basically, he wanted statues of himself all over Rome. And the program needed money, and the best way to get money was to tax the people. Caesar issues this decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world, so that more people in the books, more people paying taxes. So everyone went to their own town to register. So Bethlehem was the birthplace of Joseph's father. And so Joseph and Mary needed to head to Bethlehem, arriving just in time for the birth of Jesus. Like the gears of a small Swiss watch, God orchestrated all of it. Governments, travel, arrogant leaders, prophecies, and even taxes. God maneuvered all of them perfectly over thousands of years for this one event. It was perfect timing.
It's perfect timing. It's so amazing. There's nothing random about the moment that God decided to step into history, to step into humanity. And I think part of the message of Christmas isn't just that he did it then, it's that he still does it now. And part of what I want to say to all of you this morning is that while I don't know what's going on in your life, obviously, here's what I know. Some of you are convinced by the details of your life that God has missed the boat with you. And I'm here to tell you, he has not. because his timing is perfect. He makes everything beautiful in his time. And I don't know what his weight is, his pause is, or the pace that he's running to you with. But I know this, his timing is perfect. And if you let him, he has one desire alone with you, and it is to wrap his arms around you. Whether you would say life is good right now, or life feels off. When I was a kid, one of the things that we would do all the time is go to this place in Canada called Point Pelee. It was this beach with, I don't know if they're big waves or not, but I remember when we were little, like the waves just seemed massive. And there's this one time where I was young enough that I was still using the arm floaty things. And I remember trying to get to my dad, who was in the black ring and tube, and he's floating out there. And I'm like, Dad! And I remember the wingy things were holding me up. So I'm like, gone are the wingy things. But the problem was, I got to this point in the water where I needed the wingy things because it dropped off and I could not swim at this point. And I remember reaching my hand all the way up and I couldn't break the surface of the water. But if I squatted and I burst up, I could just break the surface of the water enough to cry out, Dad! And then go back down. And I just kept doing this over and over and over. Here's the problem with trying to call out to my dad. He's blind. Like no eyes on his head, can't see a thing. So I'm calling out to the guy who's trying to tune in to me and wherever I'm at on the water with nothing but his ears. And I'm, Dad, Dad, Dad. And there's this one point I distinctly remember. It probably wasn't I wasn't like seconds from death. But I don't know how many minutes I had left because every time I would burst the surface of the water, I started to get so tired that I'd start taking water in. And then I'd go down and I'm spitting the water out and then I'm bursting up again and I'm, Dad, Dad, Dad. So I remember this one time, I'm totally squatted. And I can remember thinking, I don't have much more. And I burst up, and I didn't break the water, but my dad's hand came all the way down, grabbed me, scooped me up, and plopped me in his lap. I have never hugged the naked, hairy chest of a man so hard as I did in that moment, buried myself into him. Your Father's timing is perfect. And maybe you wish, like there's an easy thing to say, like he would have been perfect. He would have come minutes before he did for my dad in that moment. And I don't know what his weight, his pace, or his pause is with you, but I know it's perfect. And I know he wants to do nothing more than wrap his arms around you. Whether you would say, life is good, I'm floating on the water, or whether you feel like you've gone under, his timing is perfect, and his desire is to pour his pleasure out on you. That's what he wants. There's this guy in the Bible that I think seemed to somehow grasp this more than so many of the others. This guy named David, he was in the video, King of Israel. If you don't know, he also authored the largest book in this book called Psalm. And the thing that's so unique about the book of Psalm is that throughout this book, David regularly pours out his heart to God about his struggles, his frustrations, his challenges in life. And some of them are directed right at God. I don't get you. You confuse me. Have you left me? Now here's what's fascinating. In the very next verses sometimes, so this was the complexity of his heart. He would then cry out with this deep-seated belief and hope that God had the power, despite his circumstances, to turn the most broken moments into incredible ones. The most painful minutes into transformative moments. And I think he had this unique ability to be able to, if you read throughout the Psalms, he had this ability to put his eyes on a truth that was larger than anything he found himself facing. And that truth is simply this, that sometimes when it feels like God was absent the minute you needed him, the truth is this, he was there trying to create the moment that had the power to ultimately transform you. We're gonna watch another video here for a minute, and this is an incredible one. It is a story about a guy named Joe. And Joe is a guy that goes here to Kensington who has an unbelievable life of moments, many of them feeling like he was sinking under the water. Until God began to show him, I was always there, and I never left you, and I came to your rescue. Watch Joe's story.
I've had this persona of my whole life, like I've tried to guard the world from that part of my life. And it was like what I wanted the world to see, of my life, and then going back to what really happened. I was born to a 14-year-old drug addict. So the first few years of our lives were on the streets. I saw things and went through things that I don't think any kid should ever go through. My mom had kind of come through a space of where she was trying to clean herself up a little bit, and for the first time in a long time, we actually had a place to live. The neighbor, the lady that lived next to us, would watch me on Wednesday nights, and she started going to this church, and it was, really great. As a child, all I knew was there were people there that were kind, compassionate, caring. In particular, there was one guy there that was really, just really kind to me and nice, and I went home and I told my mom about him, and she agreed to come to church with me to meet this guy, and who eventually ended up being my dad. Unfortunately, my mom couldn't beat those addictions, and I think that she had to go back to to living that life that she just couldn't seem to beat, and she ended up leaving him. She took me with her, and I just didn't want to be with her. I wanted my family back, and so there was a point where she took me back to my dad's house, and I'll never forget standing in that driveway, and just pulling up there and standing there, and she's basically set me on the doorstep and told my dad, if I don't really want him anymore, so either you take him or I'm going to put him up for adoption. It got to the point where I couldn't amass enough things to feel whole. It's like I'd get a suite here or a suite at a venue, the Lions or at Michigan Stadium or the Auburn Hills, the Pistons. And I remember vividly standing out on this suite and watching a basketball game. And I can really remember what I was wearing, and I just remember standing there thinking, you know what, I don't even like basketball. I'm not even a fan. I have this suite because it's what I want people to see, and I want them to see me standing out here. One night I came home from work, and I had just finished a long day, was tired, exhausted, and it just kind of hit me. It hit me almost like a ton of bricks, like something fell on me. And I kind of fell to my knees, and I actually ended up on the ground in a fetal position. And I know that the Holy Spirit was breaking me at that point. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I know that I couldn't do it anymore on my own. I was convicted that I had been chasing all the wrong things, and just not on God's path and not on what He wanted for me in my life. I was a strong guy. I was a powerful entrepreneur, and to be curled up on the closet floor was humbling. I had started attending church again on a regular basis, and eventually met my wife. So as our journey here at Kensington continued, we got more involved, my wife and I did. One of the directors here came to me and offered me the opportunity to get into the LIVE training, which was absolutely amazing. It was just a great journey of finding out where God is in your journey, and where He wants you to move out to. In one particular exercise, we were to go back to the time where we first felt any worthlessness. For me, it was the worthlessness. When would I feel worthless for one of the first times in my life? And I thought back to that time when my mom dropped me off at my dad's house. The second part of the exercise was that you zoom out of it now and see, where was Jesus in that moment? Or how did He lift you out of that moment? I remember zooming back and putting myself back in that situation, and instead of my mom grabbing me by my shoulders, I saw Jesus grabbing me by my shoulders. And He put me on that step. And He said, take care of my son. Just take care of him. I'm going to take him from this situation. He's not going back to it. And I'm going to put him in a situation that I can use him later. All those times in my life, as I look back, of those bad situations, and then to zoom out and see where He was in it, it's amazing. He's there. He's never, ever left me. Consequently, as I've gone through this faith journey, and quite frankly, there's just been some business decisions too that have taken me to the point of not being an owner anymore. I got out of my last dealership, and I didn't know where God was really pointing me. I took some time to really think about that and pray on that and reflect a lot on it. So I got approached by a friend of mine to go and visit a group over on the west side of the state, and really wasn't looking for a job at the time. I remember meeting with them afterwards, and one of the owners asked me, said, so what's next? What do you want to do with your career? Where, it was almost like an interview, so to speak. And I said, you know what? I just want to advance God's kingdom. I remember driving home, and I'm talking to my wife on the phone, and she asked me, she said, how'd it go? How do you think it went? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't think, I don't think they really heard what they wanted to hear from me, but it's okay, So I was at peace with it, and I remember getting home and talking to them later, and they're like, yeah, they'd like you to come help us out. So, like, really? I thought I blew that one. I'm a director with their company now. I've taken over a pretty big role in their company. God has just completely put people in my path for me to be able to tell my story. I've been able to witness and advance God's kingdom and talk about the things that that I've gone through and the pitfalls that I fell into in my career. But I think when you step back and you really look at where you are in any of those situations, if we're sitting here today, we're probably on our way, or at least we're in a safe place. And I think whatever situation you're in, He's lifted you out of it and He's sat you right here.
Every time I hear that part of the story where his mom puts him on the porch and says, I don't want him. Wow. Like, I have 3 kids. My oldest, I think, is here in the room. At least according to the app I stalk him with, he is. He's here somewhere. And I remember the first time I ever laid eyes on him, I'd have died for him in that instant. I can't imagine giving him away. And some of you have had a moment like Joe's, and maybe it wasn't your parents, but it was a porch where things just didn't go the way you thought they would, where something failed you, a relationship, a child, a marriage, a friend, a job, something you had worked for, earned, where things just fell apart and you had your own porch moment. And for some of you, you know what Joe felt when those dots got connected and he realized he was never alone on that porch, that God was always with him. But there's some of you in the room that maybe you're like, I don't know that, and I don't see that. All I see still is the porch and nobody with me. Nothing has been connected in those dots yet. And that's why I love the song that we're about to do. This is a song that was written specifically for today, for this moment, for this Christmas experience. And it was written for this experience because it's a song that speaks to this idea that God so specifically paused time when He stepped into creation with intentionality and perfection the moment that He did, for one reason: to ultimately meet you, to take you and I tenderly by the hand, and to walk us through life, connecting all the broken minutes. And you might go, then why do you let the minutes get so broken? That's what we do. We just have a great habit of breaking everything. But He has this beautiful ability to restore it. And if you'll let Him, He'll walk with you hand in hand and teach you about everything that is His, that He longs to make yours. And in that relationship, He can connect all the dots of your broken minutes and turn them into glorious moments.
Before I met you, my whole world was a combination of events without cause.
wandering in a direction that I could not find. I was searching for a reason to press on, longing just to make the darkness fade. Yet in my own strength I always seem to come up short. But then you stepped into my reality with the force of love to change history. You made my world stand still as you introduced me to grace, to grace. And just like that, you waltz through time. You take my hand, show me what's yours, and make it mine. You free my soul, you call me your own. You know exactly how to make life beautiful. You're beautiful. In a world full of hurt and pain, many wondering where will hope come from. Distractions from every angle, when will it make sense? My chaos is at its highest, while my joy seems to reach its lowest point. I'm tethered to the weight of worry with no escape inside. But then you stepped into my reality with the force of love to change history. You made my world stand still as you introduced me to grace, to grace. And just like that, you walk through time. You take my hand, show me what's yours, and make it mine. You free my soul, you call me your own. You know exactly how to make life beautiful. You're beautiful. Always forward, never back. You see beginning to the end. You made a story so unique, I still can't comprehend the magnitude of your heart, and there's still more in store. You know every stop I name, but think my life's worth coming for, worth coming for, worth coming for. And just like that, you waltz through time. You take my hand, show me what's yours, and make it mine. You free my soul, you call me your own. You know exactly how to make life beautiful. And just like that, you walk through time. You take my hand and make it mine. You free my soul, call me your own. You know exactly how to make life beautiful. You're beautiful.
Caesar Augustus made a law. It required that a list be made of everyone in the whole Roman world. It was the first time a list was made of the people while Quirinius was governor of Syria. Everyone went to their own town to be listed. So Joseph went also. He went from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea. That was where Bethlehem, the town of David, was. So Joseph went there because he belonged to the family line of David. He went there with Mary to be listed. Mary was engaged to him. She was expecting a baby. While Joseph and Mary were there, the time came for the child to be born. She gave birth to her first baby. It was a boy. She wrapped him in large strips of cloth, then she placed him in a manger. That's because there was no guest room where they could stay. There were shepherds living out in the fields nearby. It was night, and they were taking care of their sheep. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. They were terrified, but an angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news. I will bring great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. Here is how you know I'm telling you the truth. You will find a baby wrapped in strips of cloth and lying in a manger." Suddenly, a large group of angels from heaven also appeared. They were praising God, and they said, "May glory be given to God in the highest heaven, and may peace be given to those he is pleased with on earth." The angels left and went into heaven. Then the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem. Let's see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby. The baby was lying in a manger. After the shepherds had seen him, they told everyone. They reported what the angel had said about this child. All who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary kept all these things like a secret treasure in her heart. She thought about them over and over. The shepherds returned. They gave glory and praise to God. Everything they had seen and heard, just as they had been told. And just like that, you waltz through time. You take my hand, show me what's yours, and make it mine. You free my soul, call me your own. You know exactly how to make life beautiful. You're beautiful.
Let me ask you, did you do anything but look at that moment and look at her and just kind of melt a little bit and go, wow, how precious. Okay, listen. Some of you need to hear this today. That's how God looks at you and me. Precious. And you're like, man, I don't know, man. I got some stuff in my life. So do we. So do I. So do we all. That's why he came. Because he looks at you and goes, precious. Precious. See, some of you need to hear this today more than anything else you need to hear. There is a God. His name is Jesus. And contrary to what so many of us have been told growing up, or we have just believed, he is not mad at you, but he is mad about you. He is nuts about you. Because he once, as God, stood on a porch and gave over his son to us and for us, because he's mad about us. There's a verse in the Bible, a collection of them in a book called John, that records probably one of the boldest things that Jesus ever said, that has stood to become also one of the most controversial things he's ever said. But when you understand what he said, and I'm going to read it for you in a moment here, when you understand it in light of the fact that he is God, the creator, came to us. I mean, picture this. God didn't say, you come find me. God didn't say, make sure your good stuff outweighs your bad stuff and maybe you'll get to me. God didn't say, I'm God, I want nothing to do with you. God, the creator, the all-powerful being of the universe, came to you. When you understand what we're about to read in light of that, you realize he didn't just come at the perfect time. He's the only one that's coming. Jesus is talking to his disciples in John 14 about things that we talk about, life and death and the hope of life after death. And they've got questions and they've got uncertainty. And this is what Jesus says to them. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and I will take you to be with me to that place. You may also be where I am. And you know the way to the place that I'm going. And Thomas said to him, what a lot of us may be in the place to say right now, we don't know where you're going. So how can we know the way? Right, that's the question. What's the way to God? And this was Jesus' answer. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. If you really knew me, you would know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him, and you have seen him. What you could really take from this on one hand is Jesus just being exclusive. I'm the only God there is. There's no other God. And we live in this culture right now that loves the pluralistic idea to God that anything will get you there. Any path will end up there. Any belief will get you to him. And then Jesus says, no, actually, there's only one. I'm him, and I'm the only way to him. And I think especially in our culture, that just rubs raw sometimes. And we can go, man, that just feels a little exclusive, a little too narrow. But when you read that in light of the fact that he already said, I love you, that's why I came to you, you realize what he's actually in fact saying is, you can look wherever you want for help. You can scan the waters for another person out there on a tube. You can look the range of the porch for somebody else to come. There's no one else coming. But I did. And I will come again and again. Not as a baby, but I will show up in your life. And if you will acknowledge me, I will step into your life and turn every broken minute into a redeemed, transformed moment. So I want to give you a chance right now to respond to that. Because here's what I'm convinced of. For some of you, you are here because God said, I want to meet you. Now, why do I say only some of you? Because some of you have had that moment. But there's others of you that you're in this room not by coincidence. You're not here just because somebody invited you or you made the decision to come check this place out today. You're here, I believe, by divine appointment. God wanted you here so that he could introduce himself and say to you, today is the perfect moment where I want to become a part of your life, where you will no longer stand alone. I entered the world to enter your world. So I want to lead you through a prayer that would just be a way for you to say, fine, God, I want you. I don't have it all figured out, which nobody does. But if you can figure out enough in this moment to muster up the faith to say this, there is a God and Jesus is him. I will choose to believe he died for me and rose for me and loves me. If you can embrace that, he says, that's all I need. No class, nothing else, no box you got to check. You just embrace that. So I'm going to lead you in a prayer to do that. And there's nothing magical about this prayer. You won't find the words I'm going to say in the Bible. It's just a heartfelt expression that I want to be your expression to say, God, I want you because you want me. So if that's your desire and you want to make that choice right now in this moment, then I'm going to pray. And I'm just going to ask you to pray with me to honor the moment. Could you all just close your eyes? Pray this with me and out loud if you would. Dear God in heaven, whose name is Jesus, thank you for your death. Thank you for your resurrection. Thank you for your promise that you're coming again. Thank you for giving your life for me. Today, I offer my life to you and ask you to enter in. Make me yours and teach me how to walk with you. Amen. Somebody might go, that's all you got to say? There's so much more to say. And you'll have many more conversations with him. That's where it begins. And here's what's so precious about this moment. This is one of the best times of the year when we light the candle. And what's so powerful about this moment when we light this candle is here's what the Bible tells us about Jesus. He is the light of the world. And so when he entered into creation, the light of creation entered into creation 2,000 years ago and laid in a manger. So for those of us that just made that decision to bring him into your life, what literally just happened is that light that was once the only light in the world just transcended space and time of 2,000 years to you. And if you let that light grow in you, here's what it does. It radiates not just in you, but through you and all around you. And I want what happens here as we light one another's candles to be a picture of that moment. So let me just even ask this for those of you that might be really zealous and you're like, oh, I can't wait to light the candle. Keep your Bic in your pocket and let this spread through the room. And as it does, may it be a picture to us of the light of Jesus that enters us and spreads through us.
To certain poor shepherds in fields where they lay, in fields where they lay, keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east, beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, born is the King of Israel. Noel, born is the King of Israel. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round young virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Would you stand and sing with us? Silent night, holy night, Shepherds quake at the sight. Glory streams from heaven afar. Heavenly hosts sing Alleluia. Christ the Savior is born. Christ the Savior is born. Silent night, holy night, Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.
This is one of my absolute favorite moments of the entire years right now. If you haven't, look around. And this is always such an incredible picture, just a visual. There's not a light on out there in that room. You can see everything. Matter of fact, hold them up in the air even, would you? Watch it just illuminate. This is what the light of Jesus does, not just in you, but through you. It sheds away the darkness, and you can't put out the light of Christ. And it spreads like wildfire when you live in it. Now here's what we have to do though together. As a community, we gotta blow the candle out for a moment. So would you bring them down? And here's what I need you to do. On 3, 2, 1, we're gonna blow them out, but you need to put your hand in front of it so you don't blow wax on the person in front of you. It'd be very bad. We did that yesterday. All right, here we go. Together, 3, 2, 1. Now here's the great thing. You can blow out a candle. You cannot blow out Jesus, because there is a light within you that is the joy of the Lord, and it doesn't go out, which means that today, maybe more than any other time of the year, it is so fitting to conclude this whole morning with joy to the world.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders, wonders of his love.
Woo! Literally get goosebumps every time I hear you go up like that. Wow. I want to go back and talk to the little version of me that didn't like going to church because it was boring and just say, it gets better. Just wait. Thank you for being with us today. I hope this was an incredible experience and a good morning for you, and Merry Christmas. So glad that you got to spend it with us and we got to spend it with you. You made our Christmas by being here today. As you're walking out, here's all I want to say. If you made a decision for Jesus this morning for the first time, then we just want to connect with you and put some resources in your hand. We're not going to harass you. We're not going to overwhelm you. And I know for some of you, that was such a big decision that talking to somebody is a big step right now. So here's what we've done, because maybe you're not in the place to even talk. We have bags with resources in them to help you know how to take the next steps important in what is going to be the most incredible journey you will ever be on. And so grab one of these bags. There's going to be people up here that will have them. There's going to be people at the hub. If you want to talk with somebody, they're there to talk. If you want to pray with somebody, they're there to pray. If you just want to literally grab a bag and go, then you grab a bag and go, but don't go without one of these. But do go with joy and know that you are so loved. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week.
is calm, all is bright. Silent night, holy night, Son of God.